I'd like to introduce to you all Keith. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you, Amy, and it's lovely to be here with you all.
It's so great to have you with us this morning. Before we launch into a bit of the wisdom on the topic of suffering, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, so I'm married to Sarah. We have 3 adult children and a daughter-in-law. And I'm an Anglican minister. I've worked in a couple of churches a fair while back. I worked in theological education for a while, and I had some really great students.
They're scattered throughout us.
But for the last sort of year and a half, been working for a Christian women's organisation called Anglican Deaconess Ministries, and I'm co-directing a mental health and pastoral care institute. So, that's what I'm up to.
That sounds great. You're busy.
Yeah.
In the best way. So, Keith, you have had a lot of experience walking with those in suffering, who are suffering. You've had suffering yourself in your life. Can you please share with us what people need when they are suffering?
Yeah. I think the basic answer to that is other people. It's really interesting what the research shows. People who come through difficult circumstances, so much, their ability to do that so much depends upon the level of social support that they have from other people. Now, that might sound like I'm not being very Christian here because, Tim talked about Job chapter 1. Job found out God was enough. And there's a great and wonderful truth there. And the extraordinary thing is the Christian faith gives a sense of meaning and purpose and identity. The fact that you're valued and loved simply for who you are is actually extraordinarily helpful for our well-being and during difficult times. That's really important as well. But, and it's a big but, God's actually made us social beings where we need other people. And God's invisible. And he can't give you a hug. And sometimes we need a hug. And that's why the research shows having people around you in the midst of difficulty is what we all need.
And one of the blessings of a church community is that there are or should be people there. So can you help us pinpoint practically what we as a church can be doing once we're there, when we're walking with someone with suffering, we're willing to walk alongside them, hug them. What else can we be doing practically as a church?
I think that what you've just said, that's really the core of it. It's actually being with people and walking alongside them. And we heard a bit about Job's friends this morning, and they didn't sort of dive straight in and try and fix the problem. And I said one of the problems is you see someone in pain, you want to help, and so we want to try and fix it. But so much suffering can't actually be fixed by us, and it is actually being there and walking alongside and doing that for the long haul, which can I say is very, very hard. An immediate crisis. Friends of ours, their son was killed in a car accident late last year, and they were surrounded by support. It was remarkable. But it's very hard for people to keep up that care over the long haul. And when someone, say, suffering from a mental illness that's ongoing, you hang in there for a while, but can we be there for each other through those costly, long, difficult moments, which do go on? I think too, the other thing we can do. The Bible's fantastic, and there's great wisdom there. But we've got to be careful about sort of diving with the Bible verses too quick. And it's being willing to. It's really, can we hear from our friends and other members of our church? Can we hear them speak like Job spoke in chapter 3 and stay with them through that? Instead of quickly jumping and saying, no, you can't think that about God, or you can't think that way about yourself. And here's some Bible verses to show that that's not right. There is the time for the Bible verses. And there is great comfort in the scriptures. And there is great comfort in praying with someone But sometimes the person can't pray themselves, but you can pray for them. And they might not even want you to pray with them, but you can say, I will pray for you. And that's a great thing. And I just think the other thing that's really helpful is that there's a beautiful verse in Philippians chapter 1 in verses 9 and 10 about praying for love. And Paul prays for the Philippian Christians that their love might abound with knowledge and insight, with discernment, so that you might know what is best. And I think often in our love really does take wisdom to know what is best for this person in this situation, and pray to God and ask Him for that. And it might be a whole range of different things. It might be actually really little things have great power. Sending a text, let someone know you're thinking about them. Saying, do you want to catch up for coffee? Cooking a meal. Taking someone to an appointment. Little things like that they really do have a big impact, I think.
Yeah, that's so helpful, and it's such a comfort to know that our Father in heaven is there to help guide us and teach us, and our prayerfulness and our approach towards the Bible is one way that we can be learning in that. So, yeah, you've just touched on that there, and I've heard this great saying that the church is great in crisis and not so great in chronic. We tend to hit it hard and then sometimes taper out or lose steam. And that can be particularly hard if we're suffering ourselves or in a busy season of life. So how can we love others who are suffering when we are suffering ourselves?
That's hard, isn't it?
That is hard.
And sometimes, there's not a lot in the tank and you don't have a lot to give. And I think this is the beauty of Christian community, that hopefully not all of you are in a really difficult, suffering place all at the same time. And there's that lovely language of one another that we find in the New Testament. And that one another language, I think, suggests that there's the times when some of us are rejoicing and we rejoice with others, and there's times when people are weeping, and there's times when things are fine with us and not for other people, so we reach out and we care for each other. And it just sort of works out in the long run. Hopefully we sort of share that around. Although sometimes it won't even be like that. There'll be some people their suffering is chronic and long term, and they do a lot of receiving because they don't actually have a lot to give themselves. But it's not a zero-sum game where, it's payback. It doesn't work like that. That's not the Christian life. It doesn't work like that. So I'll tell you a little story, actually. I had this for several years, this chronic facial nerve pain condition. It was very nasty. It was like electric shocks going through your face when it was around. And when Sarah and I started this new job, we were sent on this study trip. And anyway, we're over in the States, and someone said, "Oh, you really should meet up with this Christian psychiatrist guy. He'd be a really helpful guy for you to talk to." So we managed to line up a meeting with him, but it was, he said, "I've got 1 hour and 8 o'clock at this particular Starbucks in Washington, D.C. And so we were there, and it was quite remarkable because I just had an episode had just come on, and Sarah had to do the talking. I couldn't speak. And he said, this guy just leant over towards Sarah and said, "What's it like for you?" And he spent the hour. We're meant to be getting ideas from him, but he actually spent the hour ministering to us in a profound way. It was a really beautiful thing, and I think that's the way it works. There's times when you give, there's times when you receive, and I just want to say, if you're in a really low place at this particular moment, just remember, you can beat yourself up and you can say, "I'm not doing enough to help other people." I just want to say, God's there for you. And in fact, it's not even about you having to hang on to him. He'll hang on to you. That's our God. That's what he's like.
That's wonderful. And just to help us, so that's some really great practical things that we can start thinking and implementing and praying over as well. But we've obviously probably helped people through suffering in the past already, and maybe not have done a very good job. So how can we, if we've been someone who's suffered or we feel disappointed in others in their response to our suffering, how can we move forward in that and forgive and keep going?
Yeah, and let's face it, we're going to let each other down. I've let people down. People have let me down. I've hurt people. People have been angry about things that I've done. And we're not perfect. That's the way things work. I find great comfort in, it's a bit weird really, but there's, you might have heard of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a German Christian who stood up to the Nazis, was imprisoned, was actually executed just before the end of the Second World War. And Bonhoeffer writes about this. He writes about us as a Christian community, and he says, it's actually a really good thing when my Christian brother or sister disappoints me. Why? Because it reminds us of what it is that binds us together as a community. And it's not how well we treat each other. It's the fact that Christ has died for us. And it's just a reminder that the bond of fellowship, of community between us is it's Christ's work, not our efforts, and not even our ability to care for each other. I think that's a wonderful comfort to bring into that situation.
Yeah, wonderful. We're founded on the grace that Christ has shown. There are so many more things we could talk about, Keith, but we unfortunately don't have time. I'll just invite the band up now. But Keith, thank you so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you have lots more wisdom, humble wisdom on this topic. So if you'd like to chat further with Keith, he has graciously offered to stick around just over to the side here after the service. You are welcome to come and chat to him. I'll be there as well. And my prayer for us here at Grace City is that we are a community who love each other well and who suffer well. So can I encourage you to keep coming along through this Job series and to use this as an opportunity to perhaps share some of your burdens with your community. Thank you.